Thank you for staying. We're so grateful. This is the AM show, and I'm still here. Later on, we'll be joined by Bernice Abubedo Lanta and Mapito CBD. But for now, let's get into our first big story. We interact with Palgrave Boakye-Dankwa on matters arising out of that motion of censure in Parliament. The committee has concluded its work, the ad hoc committee. Interesting dynamics that came to the fore in there. But what can we expect as a decision is going to be arrived at? Is it going to end there? Are we going to go back to plenary and all of that? Well, joining the discussion, we have Palgrave Boakye-Dankwa. He's government spokesperson on governance and security. He joins me in the studio once more. Palgrave, a very good morning to you.
Very good morning.
I'm actually very grateful. Together with my team, I think I should do this on behalf of the team that Thank you.
It's always an opportunity to be on multimedia. You know that you guys are one of the trailblazers in this country, and it's always a joy for government to partner with you to be able to educate the Ghanaian people on what is happening in government. So thank you for the opportunity as well.
Right. So we'll talk about that motion of censure. We'll talk about the budget, slated for Thursday. The finance minister hopefully will be delivering that. I say hopefully because of some questions I'll be posing to him. Later on, we'll also talk about Albert Kandapa and what he's been saying about the state of our national security, Galamsey, the threat basically about terrorist forces in the sub-region. We'll be joined by Professor Inning and others on that discussion. Well, let me start with Palgrave. For you, all of those, and I don't know whether I walked you through those 7 points. I could actually get them very quickly because I took a snapshot of that. Okay. But there were 7 crucial issues for which the motion of censure was triggered, for which this ad hoc committee, 8 members, were put together. What do you make of it all? Let's start from there.
So, Benjamin, we are in very interesting times. That's how I like to see it. And really, all countries, all finance ministers, all presidents are in very difficult times to be able to ensure that their citizens have the best of leadership. And our president, Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, has not defaulted in that regard. I found it quite unfortunate that our finance minister had to be dragged to Parliament through a censorship for impeachment and removal from office. I felt that it would have been good for the conversations that had arisen in terms of the first 7 allegations to be before the finance committee in Parliament. But I'm quite happy and excited that the finance minister had an opportunity and a fair hearing to rebut those allegations that came against him. You'll recall that there were initial 2 of those allegations out of the 7 allegations that didn't have grounds for the ad hoc committee to deal with. And so that was clearly scrubbed off. There were 5 other allegations that came forward. And I found it that it was really enlightening, very educative for the Ghanaian people to better appreciate the roles and responsibilities of a finance minister, and also for the Ghanaian people to appreciate some of the challenges the finance ministers go through, how tactical they must be to ensure that they balance the books and also keep the livelihood of the Ghanaian people at best. So one of the first issues, you would realize that the finance minister was very humble in his delivery. The finance minister apologized on behalf of the government and even the Ghanaian people, and stated that every finance minister around the world, when given the opportunity, would apologize for the challenges that we are going through. He was upfront in that, and also stated that in the midst of the challenges that we are going through, our lights are still on, we are not queuing for fuel, the hospital dispensaries have failed, most of our schools are filled, children are going to school and the likes. And then it came to the issue of contingency fund and contingency vote. The finance minister gave some case studies of how we came to withdraw money for the cathedral, which has been one of the most controversial infrastructure of President Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and stated very clearly that the cathedral funds came from the contingency vote, not the contingency fund, which needs to go through parliamentary approval. Stated very clearly that the contingency vote has been standard procedure even prior to the MPP government coming into power in 2017, and gave case reference of 2014-2015, when the then NDC government was in power, when the cabinet of John Dramani Mahama had to give some money for the World Cup, FIFA World Cup in Brazil, close to about $9 million US, and even had to fly some extended amount of money through a private jet, and also gave case reference in recent times as Ghana qualified for the Qatar 2022, and as our budget was read on the 16th of November 2021, at a time when we had not had any qualification, but then as a result of the contingency vote, which is always approved and passed by the Parliament Finance Select Committee were able to make funds available for players to be playing in the World Cup sometime this year. And this week as well. So clearly for me, all those extrapolations were quite key. Also give conversations around that debt record that the former president, John Agyekum Kufuor, left a debt record of close to about $9 billion US dollars, 9 billion Ghana cedis, I'm sorry, in 2009 when he was leaving office. And then in 2016 when John Dramani Mahama, His Excellency, was leaving office, left a debt record of close to about 123 billion Ghana cedis. And then just oppose that to our debt record as of 2021 to the tune of about 450 billion, and then marry that with, in terms of percentage, close to about 1,300% in the NDC government, and then ours is about 360%. So really, the conversation about mismanagement or overborrowing is an issue that is strong for people.
We'll get into those, and some felt that it was almost a rehash of the 2022 budget, almost as though he were going to rehash practically everything.
No, but Benjamin, truth is sacrosanct. I mean, truth is sacrosanct. It cannot be hidden from any other data and facts that is available for the Ghanaian people.
So we'll get into some of the truths that you speak of. But let's talk about, so I found the screenshot I took of those, the photo I took. Conflict of interest, unconstitutional withdrawals from the consolidated fund, illegal payment of oil revenues into offshore accounts, deliberate and dishonest misreporting of economic data to Parliament, fiscal recklessness leading to the crash of the Ghana cedi, incompetence and frightening ineptitude and gross mismanagement of the Ghanaian economy. Some say he successfully, in a way, parried some of the claims that were made, but that in other respects, he didn't. Let's start with a bit about the contingency fund and the contingency vote. Yes, there are reasons we have the contingency vote to take care of certain urgent situations. But we also know that the contingency vote is finite. It is not infinite. It is finite. So when the talk is brought to bear of a national cathedral, for example, and 25 million given as seed money, red flags are raised. Do you admit that the contingency vote is limited?
I would like to give the perspective of the difference between the contingency fund and the contingency vote.
Yes, but before
then the Ghanaian people.
Do you realize that the contingency vote itself is limited? There are some things you can't do. I do
not doubt that other government obligations include the seed capital that must be given for the country's national cathedral, which the Attorney General gave an opinion on that as at January 2022. That is the national cathedral and not the President's cathedral, and is registered.
But is it a national cathedral that the people want that is going to serve the purpose of the people? That's
the President of the Republic was voted into power by the people. And so whatever vision,
but without having told the people,
whatever vision,
but without having told the people that he would construct a national cathedral, that was never in there.
The president did not even tell the people he was going to do Agenda 111. But as a result of COVID and the deficiency,
he spoke of infrastructure.
Yes,
Agenda 111 feeds into that.
No, the president did not speak about Agenda 111 in the 2016 elections. You will recall. But as a result of the fact that we didn't predict that the world was going to face such a major pandemic that had close to about 6 million people dying globally, the president saw the deficiency in the health infrastructure and decided that he's going to build 111 hospitals. And I tell you today that 60% of them are close to completion. So there are certain things that we didn't tell the Ghanaian people, rightly so, but in the midst of that, as part of the vision of the entire architecture of the country, we as a government felt that it's good for us to put that. But let me just give the difference between the contingency fund and the contingency vote. Now, on page 6 of the finance minister's delivery, and he says the contingency fund, the proponents referred to it, was covered under the constitution, specifically under Article 177. This constitutes money voted by Parliament, and advances from this must be authorized by the Parliament Finance Committee. That's clear. Now, the contingency vote, on the other hand, is in line under the other government obligations. Vote, which is approved by the Finance Committee and passed as part of the Annual Appropriation Act passed by Parliament. And then gave case reference that from 2014, there was no specific allocation for the 2014 budget for Ghana's participation in the FIFA World Cup in Brazil. The cabinet of President John Mahama, and I stated all of this over and over again. So clearly, there are issues that are not really are not stated in the budget that goes under other government obligations. And I feel that the matter has been brought to a rest with this clarification. And I stated there are many
I don't know about coming to a rest, because you have only explained to us what the law says technically. But the point to be made is that the contingency vote is not infinite. That is what has come to the fore. That is what some other members of parliament have also brought up. And I'm saying that it's not to say that the contingency fund vote is not meant for the purposes. It's meant for exigencies. But people are saying, was the National Cathedral an exigency? Was it an urgency? And having spent 25 million seed money, it overshoots what the contingency vote is meant.
Benjamin, I do not think so. I think that the matter that was brought to bear was the constitutionality of the withdrawal.
Yes.
Okay,
which is what is carried with this entire...
It's a matter of constitutionality.
Agreement or discussion on a fund and a vote.
Yes, the main issue is that the finance minister, the Honorable Kenoforiata, has not breached any constitution in the withdrawal of the amount of money that was given as seed capital to the National Cathedral. You'll recall that in all budgets that were presented, and I have it here, in the 2021 budget that was presented, we stated as a country that we're going to support with land, we're going to support with the secretariat, and we're going to support with seed capital. And so if as a government, I mean, if you look at our 2020 budget and economic policy, paragraph 385, we announced the establishment of the Board of Trustees of the Cathedral. The same year, 2020 mid-year review budget, paragraph 279, we also announced the groundbreaking, which happened on the 5th of March, 2020, for the commercial construction of the face of the project of the Cathedral. So you look at all of these issues. We have updated the Ghanaian people in all of our budget statements and our budget reading of the government's commitment, in addition to all other infrastructural works that we are doing. But I'll tell you the truth, the economic value when we are done as a country building this cathedral, you would appreciate the number of persons that would come into this country for tourism, because there is a Bible museum that is being built. I had an opportunity of living in Israel for 3 years, and I've seen the number of people that journey from around the world to come to Jerusalem on pilgrimage on a regular basis. And on this continent, Christians would appreciate that our Lord Jesus Christ came to Egypt. And so if we have a national cathedral that represents the faith of the Ghanaian people, I think that it's something that we all must be grateful to.
The faith of the Ghanaian people is, first of all, if you would, yes, looking at the numbers, more Christian, but there are Muslims here. There are those who observe, at least, if you look at the 3 recognized ones, at least as per our national life, traditional, African religion, Christianity, Islam. So which faith exactly?
Ghana is a very sacred religious.
We're not.
Ghana is not a Christian country.
A Christian.
No one has stated that. No one has stated that.
Right.
Ghana is a very religious and sacred country.
Right.
And I was particularly excited when the chief imam exhibited that religiosity by supporting the National Cathedral, because it's a national monument. Right. It's a national monument, and everyone should be a part of it. In recent times, I think sometime this morning, I heard Dr. Joyce Ayers speak about the National Cathedral and how people should be contributing to make sure that the National Cathedral is built. And I'm very confident that by the time we go into the 2024 general election, we will see such a beautiful edifice there for the Ghanaian people to continually engage in their worship to God or to Allah or to whichever supreme being.
So let me just ask this. So even in these harsh economic times, and with, first of all, the MPP, your administration feels it is reflective of the will of the people, the hoi polloi, the vox populi, to go ahead with a cathedral that has been roundly denounced by civil society organizations, by people in media, by the generality of Ghanaians in terms of votes that have been conducted, surveys that have been conducted. That is one. And then if you consider, you spoke about our debt stock. You look at how much has been added from before this administration took over. That is about 120 billion, and now we're staring at about 350 billion. You feel it is justified in terms of some of these projects in these times we find ourselves?
Our borrowing did not begin in 2020. You will recall. Did
it begin in 2017?
So when we came into government, there was an already IMF program that was running. And we brought the IMF program, I think as at April of 2018, we completed the IMF program. And the country began on a single-digit inflation. I mean, we have recorded a single-digit inflation for the past 4 years, from 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2020, until we came into March 2020 when COVID entered into our country. And then the devastating effect of the pandemic, I mean, hit us so badly. Whilst we were recovering from the pandemic, I mean, no one knew that Russia was going to invade Ukraine. And I've sat in global conversations. I mean, you have listened to global conversations around the world. Just last week, COP27 was ongoing. There was consistent, repeated updates of what the pandemic has caused the global world, what the Russia's invasion of Ukraine has caused the global world. So clearly, these borrowings are to make sure that the government continues to invest in infrastructure, the government continues to meet the needs of the Ghanaian people, the government continues to make sure that every single promise in terms of our flagship programs come to bear. And I think that we are very justified.
Your flagship programs have failed, but we'll get to that in a bit. So you've borrowed about 320 billion. Our debt stock currently, I mean, per what the finance minister has just been telling us, is around 450 billion Ghana cedis. And your administration alone has borrowed about in excess of 320 billion. And when you're asked what you have to show, you often go to, those flagship programs. Let's take them bit by bit. Free SHS. I listened once more to Professor Ivan Adai-Mensah, former Vice Chancellor of the University of Ghana, very respected senior friend and colleague of mine. Recently, I think it was the Ghana Academy of Arts and Sciences that invited him. And he reiterated the point that, look, it's a good thing, but the way we are implementing it is shambolic. It's not going to help. Look at Planting for Food and Jobs. I spoke recently to Dr. Nyaho Tabaklo, a founding member of your party, who says it's a no-brainer and this is not sustainable. In fact, I hear, I think under former President Rawlings, in the early days, something similar was done. It folded up within a very short while. We can take a look at 1D1F, another flagship program, which some people say has failed. The last time I came here, you said there were 200 factories. Recently, we heard Nana Akufo-Addo make some assertions about factories in Sabelugu and the rest, and our checks reveal those factories are there, all right. They are not complete. They are not producing anything. How do you respond to all of these? How has our borrowing reflected in the lives of people?
So, Benjamin, as a government, all our 16 flagship programs have been extremely effective. I can tell you on authority, there is none that has failed. Clearly, I can tell you on authority that there is none that has failed. Our government...
Even when a founding member of your party says they have failed?
Benjamin, I am telling you that there is none that has failed. Our flagship programs, I'll tell you, I'll begin. We campaigned on free SHS, giving young people an opportunity to go to school. The percentages of young people that drop out from junior high into senior high is skyrocketing. The high level of illiteracy in this country is extremely worrying and a concern to every single person who is thinking about the next generation. Our president, Nana Akufo-Addo, campaigned on a free SHS. In less than 100 days in 2017, we implemented one of the most audacious flagship programs in this country, on this continent, widely admired by countries and governments that want to emulate.
Let's skip the rhetoric and talk about
what it has achieved.
Let's talk about what it has
achieved. I'm coming into it. We have supported 1,765,977,000 students under free SHS and TVET. To promote human capital development and social mobility. Number two, we have enrolled close to about 15,650,000 the youth start that gives young people an opportunity, close to about 1 million young people to start their entrepreneurial jobs. As a government, we are turning this country into an entrepreneurial nation. You can imagine the conglomerate of the Asian tigers. You name them, Jack Wang. You name them. You go to Nigeria, our neighbors. You name them, Dangote. Look at how these people have become global entrepreneurs. As a government, we seek to see to it that young people take the future into their hands by starting their own business. And I've posted that you look at these 1 million jobs that we seek to create, and even look at 10 people getting grants and funds from the Youth Start to be able to start their own businesses. And each of them begin to employ even feeding 20 people. Just multiply that. The effect is huge. I'm very confident that by the time our government ends its tenure by 2024, would have created more jobs in this country than any government since 1957. You can quote me on that. Now, we have also provided the needed infrastructure to support decentralization in local government to expand access to public services under the Regional Reorganization Program. We have promoted the development of railway network. I have, you have traveled around the world. You've seen how it's taken countries many years to build infrastructure as it relates to railways. You travel to the Volta region now. It's admirable to see the level of infrastructure that we have put in railway. We have tackled it by the bull. I don't think that any government has been that head-on as it relates to those things. We have supported the ongoing construction of fishing harbors to service key coastal communities, including Axim, Discove, Mori, Montfort, Winneba, Senya Breku, Gomoafete, Teshin, Jamestown, and ongoing. School feeding. We fed a lot of people. We've increased it actually from 1.6 million in the 2016 to close to about 3.3 million people as of 2021.
And you've still, I mean, just to interject, I've wanted to interject, but you've still pegged the rate at around 1 CD. Which has got, in fact, less than 1 CD.
I think
1 CD before. Yes, I know, but we were expecting, these nations and others to use less than 1 CD.
At my last check, it's been increased. So if you look,
I'm not disputing that.
If you look at the level of infrastructure work that we have put in place, I've told you, every weekend I travel to Ashanti region. Okay, and when you are traveling from Accra to Ashanti region, from Pokwase to Insawam, the road is being expanded. Clearly, you cannot take away the level of investment that this government has placed.
So it is clear. You've touched on infrastructure, you've touched on education, you've touched on
one district,
factories, and all of that.
One factory.
You do accept, though, that a lot of these factories, like I was pointing to you, Nana Kobia made some assertions recently on a different station about the watermelon factory, about another one, a rice factory, I believe, in Savelugu, and all of that. Claims that turned out did not check out. And our own, people have been on the ground, and these don't check out. But I'd like to take you on these 2 points. You speak about education and the numbers. You speak about unemployment and all of that, creating jobs. Do you know that in the second quarter alone, over 1 million men lost jobs between quarters 1 and quarters 2 of 2022? Lost jobs in this country. Men. I'm talking of only men. And that is data from the Ghana Statistical Service. In terms of percentage, 9.4% of employed men in the first quarter were unemployed in the second quarter. Are you also aware that in the Upper East region alone, 7 out of every 10, 69% of men employed in the first quarter were no longer employed in the second quarter? In fact, per the GSS in its statistics, 600,893 males, that is aged between 15 to 24 years, were not in education, moving now to education, employment or training in the second quarter. And that's an increment of over 100,000 from the 463,260 recorded in the first quarter. You have to digest some of these. It also adds that 3,335,604 males aged between 15 years and older are not literate. How do we grapple with all of this? Just today, the Finder newspaper, look at the headline. 1.2 million Ghanaian children not in school. And you look at the data, that is also data from the latest, statistics from the 2021 Population and Housing Census, which reveals that 1.2 million, in fact, 1,215,546 Ghanaian children aged 4 to 17, including those at SHS level, are not in school. Out of that number, almost 1 million children have never attended school. Think about F-cube. Almost 1 million children have never attended school. The Savannah region has 43.2% of children who have never attended school, highest percentage in the country. What do you say to that? So you're touting the achievements. How do you respond to these?
Benjamin, government puts the infrastructure together. Government puts the policy together. The children must go to school. That's the truth. I have not read the story. Okay, I'll take time to read it later.
Right.
But we need to be able to, what are the reasons why they are not going to school?
Right.
Because we need to ascertain that. Because government has put the infrastructure in place. Government has put a policy in place. So why are children not going to school?
Does the infrastructure suffice?
Well, clearly, you know, Benjamin, the world is overpopulated. Just about 2 weeks ago, the world was about 8 billion people. We are growing exceedingly, which is why when you look at our population conversation, we must be able to marry our resources to our population. But clearly, you look at the number of people that are born on this continent every 60 seconds, it's about 12 people every 60 seconds. 12 children are born. When you look at the developed world, every 60 seconds, 2 children are born. So we're gradually getting there. We're gradually getting there. I need to verify your data. But
this is data from the Ghana Statistical Service.
I know.
Partly from the census and then from Ghana Statistical Service.
We need to ask the question: why are they not going to school? Because the policy is available. People must go to school. So we must ask, why are the parents...
So you think the problem is the fact that children are not going to school?
We should find out why they're not going to school.
Not the fact that there is a yawning gap in terms of accessibility. And it's not just, we're not just talking infrastructure, we are talking teachers, we are talking curricula, you know, about our syllabi and the problems in there. We are talking school feeding and how it may not be operationalizing as well as we want. You know, all those factors are in there.
It does not rule out the fact that young children must wake up and go to school. When I drive around town and I see children by the side of the road, I tell them to go to school. Because people must go to school, which is why it buttresses the point more why free HHS is key. If we have these skyrocketing numbers of children from the age of, you stated 4 to 14, that are
17.
4 to 17 that are not in school, the question must be asked, why are they not in school? Because as a government, we have done our part by putting the policy, by investing money and resources to make sure that children are in school. In recent times, I'll tell you the truth. In recent times, I traveled to Paris and I came, and just at Kotoka, one of the people who I came with, passenger, was asking, where are these young boys who carry trolleys here? I said, it's a thing of the past, because President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo has put them in schools. And so if these numbers from Upper East and these other deprived communities are coming, we must ask the parents. The parents must answer why the children are not going to school. Because as a government, the resources are available and the data is good. So the data is good for policy to make sure that children are going to school, because you cannot deny any child the opportunity to education.
Right. I think Professor Haji, Professor Ivan Adai, a lot of people who are preeminent when it comes to our educational, sector and as the whole spectrum of what we do. They have said time without number that we ought to take a second look at these flagship programs. Some have even said that on the back of our economic situation, some of them ought to be trimmed down, not take them away. Free SHS, for example. Why do we still keep making it a mass thing where everybody benefits, when in fact, you, Palgrave, may not need free SHS? You get it. I went to a school last week. It's one of these international Montessori schools. And some of apparently, they operate an international system and a Ghanaian system. Do you know some parents felt that free SHS may not make the quality cut? It may make the quantity cut, but not the quality cut. And they took their children to other schools. I mean, there are people who can afford to do that. Why make it en masse and, heckle everybody with this situation? Why don't we take a second look at it, especially when people in that sector are saying, do it this way and let it be better? Why?
Benjamin, the rationale really behind free SHS, and I'll tell you the truth. When I had admission to University of Ghana when I was studying, at the time I went to visit the Vice Chancellor of KNUST, Professor Anda. And I remember when he asked me, Palgrave, why didn't you come to KNUST? And I said, well, when I went to the Sadao College, I didn't do technical drawing. I wanted to do building technology in KNUST, and they said they will not let me do. Do you know what he said? He said, KNUST is a place where brilliant people come to. And when you come there, it's a clash of ideas and you excel. The real benefit of free SHS is that somebody from Savlugu can come to Wesley Girls. Equity. Somebody from Nandom can come to Achimota. Somebody from Patia can come to Presec. That's the real benefit. That we all have equitable share of the resources and the benefits of education. Now, we don't rule out the conversations that have come as we have opened it up to the masses. I'll tell you, in 2019, I was in India and I met a Ghanaian who you would say could be able to afford free SHS. But he said, Palgrave, I am very particularly excited that President Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo brought free SHS. And I said, why? He said, because at the time when my daughter was going to SHS, my son was going to the university. And I didn't know how I was going to provide for my daughter and for my son. And he was particularly excited that free SHS was there. So free SHS is not just for people that cannot afford, but it's even for the average Ghanaian who ordinarily can afford. But as a government, we've put money in the pocket of people. I'll tell you, look, our grandparents who are taking pension are no more giving their money to their grandchildren to go to school. Our uncles and aunties that are taking salary at the end of the month are not giving money to their nieces and nephews to go to school, because government has put those monies into their pocket. So the conversation on free SHS is key. The government has heard it. I believe that as a government, we have done considerably well in ensuring
so I have had to
literacy to the barest minimum.
I have had to bring in some of these because while we're talking about the motion of censure, at least with you focusing on that, these issues also come to play. The financing of the country and how those are being expended. But I'd like to just going back to the work of the committee, the ad hoc committee. How did you find its work? Some say that it was a bit of a worrying situation. Maybe a joke was made out of some things, and I listened to Katie Hammond by and large, leading questions here and there. I mean, for a moment, and I think, yes, while it's political, some of these issues, you hear people from here and there, but maybe that's something we can do away with. But just to find out from you, will the finance minister, Ken Ofori-Atta, deliver the budget statement on Thursday? Will he?
Benjamin, you premise your question on will the finance minister. The budget for every year ensuing, especially now, the 2023 budget, would be delivered by the finance minister. It's the president's budget. And so the finance minister is still finance minister of the Republic of Ghana. I'm confident that he will deliver the budget on Thursday, God willing, to the Ghanaian people.
Okay, so hopefully he will be delivering that. Let me just get this from you then. So, and Emmanuel Bombande joins the conversation, a security analyst. Let me just welcome him aboard and wrap with you on this question. Mr. Bombande, a very good morning to you, sir.
Hello, good morning. And I always refer to myself not as a security analyst, please. I'm the humble person who is a peace-building practitioner.
A peace-building practitioner, okay. So I'll take note of that. A peace-building practitioner with your wealth of knowledge in this sector, though. Pardon some of us when we call you a security analyst. But just hold for me for some 30 seconds as I wrap this segment of the conversation with Paul Grave. So I'd like to find out, you were saying that the finance minister, hopefully, will deliver the budget statement. Well, are you aware that the majority has threatened in a way to stage a walkout should he come and do that? I have heard some of them say that they would walk out, supported by the minority. Now, you know that there's a quorum that needs to be formed for the budget to be delivered. If the numbers are not there, the finance minister will be humiliated.
Benjamin, we live in very interesting times. I think that our politics is getting very interesting. I'll tell you, as a party and even as a government, we have one position on delivering the president's vision for the country. I'm very certain that on Thursday, the majority side of Parliament and even the minority side will build stronger consensus because as a country, we need to be able to move forward. A number of politicking might not necessarily help with our growth and our development. I do not think that it takes anything away from our party and our government and even the country when the finance minister delivers the budget statement. And so I wish the parliament the best. I wish the ad hoc committee the best. I've been extremely encouraged by the processes that they went through to give the finance minister a fair hearing. And I look forward to the reports that they will present on the floor of the House. It's going to be an interesting time, but I'm certain that the majority side of Parliament will not stage a walkout. I'm confident that they will be in the chamber.
You are confident of that?
Very confident in the chamber. I'm very confident that the minority will be in the chamber. And I'm very confident that the president's budget will be delivered to the Ghanaian people.